All right, it's on.
All right. Shalom, shalom. First and foremost, we'd like to give our praise and glory to Yahawah, BAHASHAM, MANASHAH, BAHASHAM, QADASH. Double honors to the elders, the apostles of great millstone, taught us his truth, and salutations to the hopeful elect that's around the four corners of the globe. And the elect begins with 144,000. Yahawah, who the world ignorantly calls God and Jehovah. BAHASHAM is in the name. YAHAWASHI, who the world ignorantly calls Jesus Christ. The Chicago Doctor is the Holy Spirit. For the brothers of the great millstone, Chicago camp. And the brother I join with.
Shalom, the brother Ibadia.
I'm back at you, brothers and sisters at the Household of Faith of the Hopeful Righteous Elect with another lesson. And Lord, when we hope this lesson be edifying to the spirit and power of Yahawah Shai. Once again, we hope this lesson is edifying. Just really going over an overview of Daniel's the 7th chapter. I believe, we did it, what's that, about 7-8 months ago? Really touching upon, the four kingdoms that was wants to be here on the planet Earth, man. And majority of Daniel's the 7th chapter took place, what's that, all the way up till you get to what's that, Daniel 7 and 9. But we're just going to jump straight into it, man. It's a very heavy prophetic, chapter in Daniel, man. And Daniel as a whole is a very prophetic book, man. But let's jump straight into it, brother.
Yes, sir. This Daniel 7 and 1, the vision of the four beasts, and it reads, "In the first year of Belshazzar, king of Babylon, Daniel had a dream and visions of his head upon his bed. Then he wrote the dream and told the sum of the matters."
And exactly right. So ultimately, just like Nebuchadnezzar had the dream of the statue. And the final king of Babylon, which being Belshazzar, he had a similar dream. Ultimately touching upon the four kingdom that's what's going to be here on planet Earth, man.
It was actually Daniel's dream.
Oh, Daniel's dream, the water.
But yeah, Belshazzar, was about to go down. But this Daniel 7 and 2, Daniel spake and said, "I saw in my vision by night, and beheld, the four winds of the heavens strove upon the great sea."
And right, that great sea is the Mediterranean Sea.
And the four great beasts came up from the sea, diverse one from another.
Right, and those four great beasts represents the four kingdoms we're actually going to touch upon, man. Just to give that overview, you had the Assyrian Babylonian Empire, you had the Persian Medes, you had the Greeks, and you had the Romans. The four major empires was going to be here on planet Earth. And ultimately, as we continue to read down, we're going to
the beasts represent empires and kingdoms, like the brother said. This verse 4. Hey, let me see. You there? You might can you turn your camera off, because it's the connection's kind of bad.
Okay.
Like, I can't really hear you too well, just for when
You hear me now?
Yeah. Okay. Yeah, I can hear you now. This verse 4. "And the first was like a lion and had eagle's wings." It says,
right,
"I beheld."
The griffin. You can actually, if you can, you can actually, on your side, you can actually just pull up a picture of a griffin.
So that's a lion with eagle's wings. Hold on. Like this, right?
Yep.
Yeah.
And ultimately, before the Babylonians came into power, you had what? You had the Assyrians. You had the Assyrian Empire, and both the Assyrians and the Babylonians, they were both Assyrians. Right. We're going to read about Nebuchadnezzar in a minute, but ultimately, you had the Assyrians first in power first, before the Babylonians took them down.
And that's the wings thereof being plucked.
Yep.
So, like the brother said, this is this first beast, this first empire is really the Assyro-Babylonian Empire. Which Nebuchadnezzar and the Babylonians, and they came out of the Assyrians, pretty much. It says, "I beheld till the wings thereof were plucked, and it was lifted up from the earth, and made to stand upon the feet as a man, and a man's heart was given to it.
Right, talking about Nebuchadnezzar, because Nebuchadnezzar was the first to rule over Babylon, you know,
Con.
which I believe that's Iraq today, Babylon.
Mm-hmm. That's right, modern day Iraq, that region. Con. So that's the first beast right there. That's the Syrio-Babylonian Empire.
Mm-hmm.
Verse 5, and behold another beast, a second, like to a bear.
Right, it says second like unto a bear. So this is the Persian Medes.
Right. Con. And it says, and it raised up itself on one side.
Right, it raised itself on one side. So you had the Persians that was greater than the Medes. Actually, real quick, can you grab Daniel's 5, the last few verses? I actually want to touch upon this before we actually went into verse 5.
Mm-hmm.
Because this is a very important point of what happened towards the end of the Babylonian Empire.
Con. So this is Belshazzar's feast. And if we go down, where do you want to
just get the last few verses how I talked about Tekel?
Con. Daniel 5:30. In that night was Belshazzar the king of the Chaldeans slain, and Darius the Median took the kingdom, being about 62 years old.
Right. So you had Darius the Mede. And as we jump into verse 5, it says what? One, raised up itself, greater than the other. Because you had the Persians and you had the Medes. But ultimately you had Darius the Mede ultimately take down Belshazzar, as we read in verse 1, Belshazzar being the final king over Babylon, ancient Babylon. Ultimately you had Darius the Mede take Belshazzar out of power. And as you read Daniel's the 5th chapter, it was a hostile takeover. When Darius the Mede ultimately stormed the Babylonian Empire.
God, it was a quick takeover.
Mm-hmm. And just a side note, that's how you can differentiate Babylon the Great and ultimately what? Ancient Babylon. Because we know that Babylon the Great, this is another lesson for another day, but I have to throw this out there. We know Babylon, ancient Babylon, it was a hostile takeover. You can actually go, to Iraq today, which ultimately, where the Babylonian Empire was. But we know how Babylon the Great is going to go out. It's going to go out by the way of fire, man.
That's right. So Babylon the Great is associated with a lot of destruction.
That's right.
Like we just read right here, Daniel 5, ancient Babylon, it was a quick takeover. When Darius, the Median took the kingdom, it basically all happened in that night. You see?
Mm-hmm.
So that shows you that Babylon the Great is talking about something different from ancient Babylon, which is it's talking about America.
And right, and modern day Babylon today, which is Iraq, is still inhabitable with people.
Exactly. So it says back in Daniel 7 and 5, we're still on the second beast. So it says, and it raised itself up on one side, which was the
raised
Persians.
itself up on one side. Yep, the Persians were greater than the Medes.
And it had 3 ribs in the mouth of it, between the teeth of it.
Right, so you ultimately had the Persian Medes take down Babylon. It had took down Babylon, it took down Egypt, and it took down Lydia. Those were the 3 ribs.
Right.
That first
going in every direction.
Babylon. Yep. Because I believe the Persian Medes had over 127 provinces. You can read about that in the book of Esther.
Let me see if we could actually pull up a map real quick. Because when it says the 3 ribs, they basically went to the north, the west, and the south.
Yep, conquering.
Like you had what was the 3, Ak? You said
it was Babylon first, you had Egypt, you had Lydia.
Right. Okay, the water. So the 3 ribs in the mouth of it, between the teeth of it, and they said thus unto it, arise, devour much flesh. Right,
arise and devour much flesh, because ultimately the 3 strongholds that they first took down was Babylon. Because Babylon, before the Persian Medes came into power, who was the first? Who was the superpower? You had Babylon. Ultimately, what you had the Persian Medes, because you ultimately had the Persians and the Medes join forces, which you get the Persian or the Medo-Persian Empire. They took down Babylon. They end up taking down Egypt, and they end up taking down Lydia. And over the course of time, they ultimately, I believe it was 127 provinces as you read the book of Esther. You know, when the Persian Medo-Persian Empire was established.
Yeah, they devoured much flesh. So like I was trying to show them the map real quick.
It's all good.
But this Daniel 7 and 6. So now it's to the third beast. And after this, so just to recap it, ancient Babylon, Assyrio-Babylonian first beast, Medo-Persian Empire second beast, third beast is about to be the Greek Empire. And it says, Daniel 7 and 6, and after this I beheld, and lo, another like a leopard. And that leopard,
right, that leopard, that leopard is talking about Alexander the Great. You know, who was the first over Greece. You can have that first Maccabees, the first chapter on deck too.
You want it right now?
Yep.
First Maccabees 1 and 1. And it happened after that Alexander, son of Philip the Macedonian, who came out of the land of Chetim, had smitten Darius, king over the Persians and Medes.
Right, and I believe this is Salakia, Big Og. I believe this is Darius the third, if I'm not mistaken, the last king over the Medo-Persian Empire, who Alexander the Great ultimately slayed.
It says that he reigned in his stead, the first over Greece.
Right, the first over Greece, and this was the first, and this is very important. This was the first, major rule of the Edomites. When they came into power, and ultimately who you had, first in rulership, you had Alexander the Great.
And, we could keep going. Verse 2, and made many wars and won many strongholds and slew the kings of the earth and went through to the ends of the earth and took spoils of many nations, insomuch that the earth was quiet before him, whereupon he was exalted and his heart was lifted up.
Right, so Alexander the Great, to being the first over Greece, they ultimately took over these strongholds. The Medo-Persian Empire being the first. Ultimately, you had Alexander the Great take over these said territories. Because we ultimately know that Esau was blessed with the sword. So he did this. What's that? In the course of 12 years before his death.
Yeah. Verse 7, it says he reigned 12 years.
Reigned 12
that's
years.
Why it's the leopard. Because that leopard represents the speed and the swiftness in which he conquered the world, the earth.
And this is all, biblical history. And this is, history that you can actually read upon, if you go on Google, read different books. And ultimately, what was the first to record it? The Holy Scriptures, man.
That's right. Like Elder Malcolm says, the Bible is forgot exactly how he said it. It's the history book, like the greatest history book. Most accurate, Hey, what was I gonna? Oh, could I get this precept real quick?
Yeah, Bible for sure.
Psalms 75 and 7. Just because we just see, man, like how the Lord raises up kingdoms and it's all his doing. He can make it happen quick. When he gives you that, when it's your time, man. You're going to conquer. So Psalm 75 and 7, it says, but God is the judge. He putteth down one and setteth up another.
And exactly right. He puts down one and setteth up another. So it's rereading through Daniel 7. Hey, ultimately what? The Lord has raised up a kingdom. The Lord puts down a kingdom. And ultimately what? The first two kingdoms, which we talked about, the Babylonians. Then you had the Medo-Persian Empire. And now you have the Greeks. That's a big example of the Lord raising up a kingdom and bringing down a kingdom.
You want me to just go back to Daniel 7? Or
yeah, Daniel 7, because it's actually finna go into the 4 generals. And then we can go back to that first Maccabees again.
Daniel 7 and 6, again, it says, after this I beheld, and lo, another like a leopard, which had upon the back of it 4 wings of a fowl. And the beast also had 4 heads, and dominion was given to it.
Right, talking about Alexander's four generals. You had Seleucid, you had Ptolemy, you had Lysimachus, and I believe you had Cassander. And the ultimate the one that ended up getting killed was Antigonus. But those was the four major generals, as you can read in the book of let's go back to that first Maccabees. As you read Daniel the 11th chapter, which is a lot of history in itself, history that I need to go back on personally. And it talks about the 6 Syrian wars, fought over that said territory after Alexander's the Great's death.
Yeah, so back in First Maccabees 1 and 4, and it reads, "And he gathered a mighty strong host and ruled over countries and nations and kings who became tributaries unto him. And after these things he fell sick and perceived that he should die. Wherefore he called his servants, such as were honorable and had been brought up with him from his youth, and parted his kingdom among them while he was yet alive." Right, so it's going to go into it. So Alexander reigned 12 years and then died, and his servants bared rule, everyone in his place. And after his death, they all put crowns upon themselves. So did their sons after them many years, and evils were multiplied in the earth.
Right, so exactly. So when you had Ptolemy, you had Lysimachus, you had Seleucid, and you had Cassander. So if you read Daniel the 11th chapter, it talks about the 6 Syrian wars of those said Edomites and their descendants fighting over that land, man, that whole territory. Ultimately, who was going to, overtake who? So ultimately, it says wickedness was multiplied in the earth. So we go back to that Daniel 7, how it talks about, what it says is Daniel 7:6. It says the 4 wings of a fowl, talking about Alexander's 4 generals, man. And who ultimately you end up having come out of that, man? You had Antiochus Epiphanes, you had that wicked motherfucker. But ultimately, talking about Alexander's 4 generals, man.
God, the beast had also 4 heads, and dominion was given to it.
Yep.
So this is the first Edomite reign. And they just fight against themselves, just like how they do today, man.
Mm-hmm.
The British versus the Germans, the Americans versus the Russians. So that just shows you, man. But verse 7. After this I saw in the night visions, and behold, a fourth beast, dreadful and terrible, and strong exceedingly, and it had great iron teeth.
Right. So the 4th beast is talking about the Roman Empire, which is the second major rule of the Edomites, man. You had the Roman Empire. It says it had great iron teeth, because ultimately, I believe Rome instituted iron within its military. Rome had a mighty military, because ultimately, we know that Esau was blessed with the sword. So ultimately, Rome was a force to be reckoned with.
Mm-hmm. It devoured and brake in pieces and stamped the residue with the feet of it.
Mm-hmm.
So
right. So ultimately, Rome was conquering.
Right.
Even more than what the Greeks did. And they're the same people, obviously, are Edomites. But Rome had more military might than the Greeks. They're both the same people, but ultimately Rome, was stronger.
Mm-hmm. And it was different, but it's going to go into it. It says, and it was diverse from all the beasts that were before it, and it had 10 horns.
Right. I believe is it first? I believe is it first or second Maccabees? How it talks about I forget what chapter. It's either 8 or 15. It had a Senate house.
I got you, bro. It's First Maccabees 8.
8. Okay, come.
I'll just get to the point. First Maccabees 8 and 15, talking about the Romans. Moreover, how they had made for themselves a Senate house, wherein 3. Actually, Salakia. Let me start at 14.
Mm-hmm.
This basically talking about how the Roman Empire operated. It says, yet basically they didn't have a king. So verse 14, First Maccabees 8 and 14. Yet for all of this, none of them wore a crown or was clothed in purple to be magnified thereby. Moreover, how they had made for themselves a Senate house, wherein 320 men sat in council daily, consulting always for the people, to the end that they might be well ordered.
Right. So, just to make this point real quick, how just like Rome had a Senate House back then, where you had Caesars. America has a because we know that America is the second leg of the Roman Empire. America has a Senate House where we have what? Presidents. Where people actually elect presidents. The same thing was happening in Rome back then. You had Caesars. You had Augustus Caesar, Julius Caesar, and today you have what? You have what they would call presidents. So Rome had a Senate House.
Right.
Just not like because kingdoms beforehand you had kings, you had heirs to the throne. So but Rome was different. Rome had a Senate House. They didn't have a king, sort of say, as the brother AHPARYAM said.
And verse 16, and that they committed their government to one man every year, right? Like a president today for Rome today, which is America. So show you the parallel. It says to one man every year who ruled over all the country, and that all were obedient to that one, and that there was neither envy nor emulation among them.
Yep. That was the point.
And ultimately, the Edomites got this concept from the actual Romans, who were, Japhetic people.
Yep.
The whole Senate House and everything. But, ultimately, they ended up corrupt the Caesars, right? Because in Maccabees 8 right here, where it talks, it talks about there was neither envy nor emulation among them. But when the Edomites really corrupted everything, there was nothing but, envy and emulation, like among the Caesars and stuff, But it says, and it had 10 horns.
Right. So today, that will be what? NATO and the EU. Back then, the 10 horns, I actually got to wrote them down because it's a lot to remember. Because Rome had vassal states, just like America, and its allies today. Ultimately, what's that? The NATO and the EU. Back then, the 10 horns, I got it wrote down, which is what? Vassal states.
Salakia. I didn't mean to cut you off, but I do.
That's perfect. That's perfect.
Oh no, this is the 7 heads. So these wouldn't be. This gives you the modern names, which is what? Belgium, Denmark, France. But originally,
you got the Anglo-Saxons, you got the Franks, the Visigoths. Just to name a few, you got the Ostrogoths, the Visigoths, the Heruli, the Vandals, the Lombards, the Suevi, the Alemanni. I know I'm probably missing like 2. The Anglo-Saxons, the Franks. The 10 horns. The vassal states back then that was ultimately, subjects under Rome. And today, it's more countries today, but ultimately we know that's falling apart. It's more countries today that was ultimately, tied to America.
And I think we can make this point just to clarify that the 4th beast, the Roman Empire, is still in effect. So it's really a 2-part empire, and to get that, you got to go to Revelation, where it says the beast had his deadly wound healed, basically came back through the Renaissance period. So it's the same 4th beast, and that's why it has the same structure as ancient Rome, where NATO today would be, the 7 heads back then, and the 10 horns today would be these European nations that it lists right here.
Right.
So you can understand. It's the same thing.
Right. Yep, and there's more countries tied to America today, but the original 10, back then, as we had mentioned, you got today you got Belgium, France, you got the Netherlands, Italy, Luxembourg. What's that? Germania Major, Germania Minor. But you have more that ultimately, is in league with America. But like I mentioned before, that is starting to fall apart as we continue to read. And we might have to stop at verse 9 because I don't think we have enough time to go through the whole chapter, but we could do like a 2-parter maybe.
Yes, sir. Yep. This Daniel 7 and 8. All right, that 4th beast. I considered the horns and behold, there came up among them another little horn.
Right. And that you was looking, Salakia, just as you was mentioning, Rome is a 2-part kingdom, because as as we was talking about, Rome, went down, and ultimately Rome came back during the Renaissance period. What is that little horn? That little horn is America, ultimately coming back in the form of the Roman Empire, the second leg of the Roman Empire in the form of America, which is that little horn.
That's right. And ultimately, America came out of the British.
Yep.
And it says, before whom there were 3 of the first horns plucked up by the roots.
Right. So ultimately, you had America started off as 13 colonies, and then you had the French American War. You had the British American War. You had the Spanish. The Spanish American War. So ultimately, through those wars, America acquired, this landmass, man. What's that? You had something called the Louisiana Purchase. Things like that, where America ultimately got the majority of this land, man. Through those 3 major wars that was fought on this land.
Yeah, Khan. That's that little horn that came up in place of those 3 other horns. Because before America was really established, Esau was empowered through his British Empire.
Yep.
They said that the sun never set on the British Empire. So that was, but it's all his 4th beast, but it's just showing you like it manifests in different ways. But this America is that little horn, like the brother just broke down. It says, and behold, in this horn were eyes like the eyes of a man, and a mouth speaking great things.
Right, a mouth speaking great things. Who is the president today speaking those great things? Because it's talking about America's pride, man. Who's ultimately speaking, and today you got Donald Trump speaking great things. That's basically in the policy right now, saying that America can do this. America is the greatest of all time. That pride, man, that this place upholds or upholds.
Salakia, let me see. And the eyes like the eyes of the man, because they really what do they big up what? Liberty, justice, right? We're gonna make this like when America was originally, they would say like, oh, the land of the free, right? It was supposed to be this like great thing, right? So that's the eyes of a man, and the mouth speaking great things, man.
Yeah, that pride.
That was verse 8.
Read verse 9. We could close it out with verse 9. We could probably come back with a part 2, Lord willing.
All right, Daniel 7 and 9, the Ancient of Days reigns. It reads, I beheld till the thrones were cast down, and the Ancient of Days did sit, whose garment was white as snow. Talking about the Heavenly Father, Yahawah.
Right, because it says until the thrones were cast down. You can grab my Revelations real quick. How Yahawashi had many crowns upon his head. Because when it talks about till the thrones, it talks about till the thrones were cast down. It's talking about heathen rule and dominion. Yahweh is going to send his son Yahawashi back to take all these said kingdoms and governments down, man. And America being at the the #1 top spot that the Lord is going to take down and destroy.
So this is Revelation 19 and 11, the coming of Hamashiach. And I saw heaven open, and behold, a white horse, and he that sat upon him was called Faithful and True, and in righteousness doth he judge and make war. His eyes were as a flame of fire, and on his head were many crowns, and he had a name written that no man knew but he himself.
Right, point being that ultimately Yahawashi is coming back to take down these said kingdoms and rulerships, man. These different governments. The Lord is going to strip their rulership away. The heathen rule and dominion, the Lord is going to strip away. The Lord is going to take down, beginning with the Edomite power structure.
That's right. So one more time, Daniel 7:9, I beheld till the thrones were cast down, and the Ancient of Days did sit, whose garment was white as his garment was white as snow, and the hair of his head like the pure wool. So his throne, his throne was like the fiery flame, and his wheels as burning fire.
Right, talking about the chariots, man. Because it talks about the what's in Isaiah 65, by his swords and by his chariots with the Lord plead with all flesh.
Yep. By
You
fire
know,
and
so
his
talking
sword.
about the chariots, huh? The laser beams from the chariots, you know, the chariots itself. But that was pretty much part one. We could definitely come back with a part two. I definitely got to get back. But you know,
Okay.
this chapter was definitely heavy on my spirit these last few hours. You know, because it's definitely important. You know, just to touch upon these heavy prophetic books, man. You know, Daniel's the 7th chapter majorly took place, but as we read in this Daniel 7 and 9, hey, this was soon to come, man.
That's right.
But I'm gonna close this out, Ibaya, if you have any closing statements.
No, that was all. The water.
All right, so with that being said, we hope this lesson was edifying. I want to end up by giving all praise, honor, glory to Yahawah, BAHASHAM, YAHAWADAH, BAHASHAM, QADASH. Double honors to the elders and the apostles of great millstone taught us this truth, and salutations to the hopeful elect that's around the four corners of the globe. Lord, when we hope this lesson was edifying, to next time, call me YASHARAHLA, Shalom, and above.
Shalom.